I'm Ankit.
Ankit.
Yeah, and firstly, I'm very thankful to you for all the wisdom you give in the
Thank
morning,
you.
and you have bring my knowledge to come to a very structured way.
Okay.
I'm very thankful for that. And I have a question. So, me and my wife, we run a guest house attached with a cafe.
What's it called?
We run a guest house attached with a cafe.
Attached with the cafe. Okay.
Yeah, and there we are also serving non-veg food.
Okay.
And I am a pure vegetarian, and my wife is also a vegan,
Okay.
hardcore vegan. But when we did that, we had in our mind, we convinced ourselves, that cruelty is still gonna happen. People will still eat what they want to eat, and we are just serving. We are not eating. So we convinced ourselves that it's not wrong.
Okay.
And gradually, when I moved towards the path of spirituality, I realized that it was just a way of convincing myself. Even I am equally a part of it, and even I am, a sinful person if I'm doing that. And now I want to get out of it. Now money is not a consideration for me anymore. I'm very much in the belief that Krishna will still provide me in whatever way. But it is very difficult for me to convince my wife that we should not do this. When I tried talking to her, she was like, if we are doing it, making it a vegetarian restaurant, then why not make it a vegan restaurant? And that would not be financially viable because hotel people would still want to have some tea, some milk, some curd, and some cheese, some butter, some ghee. It's practically not possible. So, and it's being impossible for me to convince my wife. So the only thing that is coming in my mind is, I take a back step and I don't take any financial benefit out of it for myself, and I just help her out. But what would be the right way to approach this, if you could guide me?
Thank you for the question. That seemed like it didn't help. Thank you for the question. I don't know why it's doing that. There's a musical expert who can help us. Check 1, check 2. Seems better. Yeah.
Turn down the treble.
Okay, thank you. So it's sometimes in our relationships there are really hard decisions to make. I'm not going to get involved in your marriage and what you should tell your wife to do. But I'm agreeing with you that it would be good for you. It would be very good and very important. If we have faith in these texts, it's actually written in these texts. It's written in, I believe, the Manu Samhita, although I'm not quite sure. Maybe Mr. Sainford knows that it says that one who kills the animal, one who transports the dead body of the animal, one who cooks it, one who serves it, one who eats it, like all of them are participating in the cruelty that was committed to the animal. And so therefore we don't really want to take part on any level. I appreciate the sentiment of vegans who also recognize that within the dairy industry you have similar types of pain being caused. And the two are actually very tightly tied together. I do see them in different categories. And would you like me to share like my own? Because really there's some magic about milk. And all the great sages speak about it. The ancient teachings on Ayurveda speak of it. And even in my own life, I saw how it was very important in the health of my wife and so on. And I live in New York City, so it's hard to get milk that isn't connected to some kind of cruelty within. There are some farms from the Hare Krishna movement that have milk we call ahimsa milk, where they're going to care for that cow till the end of its life. But those places are very distant from where I'm from, and they have trouble. Like there are all kind of laws about selling it over state lines and so on, which makes it very hard. So what I've done for myself, I feel the need to have it as part of my diet for health benefits. But I try to do it in such a way where I commit as little, I get the highest quality, and I also commit as little violence as possible in that. So I found ways to get it from small farms, where it's not the absolutely horrible factory farm conditions, where cows live a relatively peaceful life. But of course, after they can no longer give milk, then those cows will be turned over.
And also the male cows.
Huh?
Also the male cows.
Same thing, yes. And what I try to do is also whatever money I spend on that milk, then I try to donate an equal amount to one particular farm. It's called the Govardhan Eco Village, which is a very beautiful project just north of Mumbai. It's an entire eco-friendly, and it's a community, but it's also like an award-winning project that's really showing an example of how people can live in harmony with nature in a spiritual way. And they do tremendous. I could go on and on about the Govardhan Eco Village, the tremendous service that they do for the cows, for the land, for humanity, for all the surrounding villages and so on. It's a really wonderful project, and they take very good care of the cows there, and they're trying to show the world that there's a better way to live, and that we can care for these cows for their entire lives. And in a cooperative relationship with the cows, we can care for them and they can care for us, and we can have them do that. So whatever I spend on, I try to find the best possible circumstances to get milk in my area, and then whatever I spend on that, then I spend this equal amount and I donate to the Goshala, to the cow care at this other place, because I can feel they're showing the world how it's done, and hopefully that would help. That's my own way of dealing with it. I think there may be ways that you can speak to your wife to say that even if her own logic seems to be like it's either all or nothing. But sometimes, even if she feels that a vegan way is better, sometimes the good becomes the enemy or the best becomes the enemy of the good. So in other words, you could take a wonderful step forward, but for some reason she's hesitating to do that unless you go still beyond that. I don't understand the logic to that. Why not at least take this one important step? It would mean a lot to you, and hopefully she can understand that and be agreeable to that. I sometimes, these relationships, you really have to try to understand one another. Our conversations can we bump into each other, and we start to compete with one another, and we never really hear each other's hearts out. And so maybe you just have to say, I need to discuss this with you. It's so important to me, and I want you to really try to hear me. And I want to really try to hear you. But what I need to share is I don't feel I can go on, serving meat this way. And if you can tolerate that we're serving meat, then why can't you at least tolerate that we serve a vegetarian level? It would mean a lot to me if we could do that. Maybe if you express yourself in a way like this, take your conversation to another level. Maybe she can hear and understand. Sometimes it helps to have someone that can help both of you understand each other. Because sometimes we get locked in patterns when we're trying to sometimes the conversation keeps coming back to the same place. I don't know if that's... And then sometimes you just need a mediator. Yeah. I don't know if that kind of thing is so popular in India. It may be more popular in the West, but it can be very helpful. That's kind of what a Brahmin would do. Like a couple would go to the Brahmin in the neighborhood and say, we're having trouble with something. Can you help us? And he wouldn't necessarily give the answer, but he might be able to help you understand each other. And so sometimes you need that kind of influence just to help a relationship. Maybe something like that can help. I don't know.
I somehow tried to do that,
Yeah.
We had a marriage counselor intervene, but somehow she was not very convinced. She's like, it's finding more troublesome to me. So yes, you're very right. I will take my time, and also this is a new concept to me. Also, I've been not in this journey for very long,
Yeah.
and it will take time for her also to digest the sudden
Yeah.
change in me.
Yeah.
For
Right.
others, it is very drastic. For me, I can understand because it's in my mind for a long time, and then it's coming to my heart, and then it's action. But for her, it's a sudden change.
I
So
see.
she's taking her time to digest that.
Yeah.
So in the meanwhile, maybe it takes 6 months, a year, 2 years, and I'm still a part of that, crime, I would say.
Yeah.
So how to deal with that in the mean process?
Perhaps her hesitancy isn't even on this subject. Maybe it's not even exactly the whether it's dairy or not. Maybe it has something to do with the fear. There's some fear that you're becoming too spiritual too quick. And she's just expressing it over this issue, but it's not even the real issue. And if that is the case, then you need to find a way to reassure her that I'm your husband, that I love you, that I'm here for you, that I'm not going to disappear from you, that this spiritual path that I'm taking up, I want you to understand that I want it to make me a more committed husband to you. I want this to improve me, to transform me, not so that I leave you behind, or that I judge you as less than being on my spiritual level. I want to do it. Part of the reason I want to do it, I want to be a better husband to you. And if you can convey that message to her, then maybe her fear will reduce, and maybe these other questions won't even be an issue. Possibly. Is that okay, Ankit? Okay. It's real important that when we get into spirituality and our loved ones or our friends, they may not be understanding. I remember when I first really, really caught on to bhakti. I was reading the books for some time, and I've shared this story some previous nights here. I was invited. I had friends that were somehow got into bhakti. They were the most unlikely characters to get into. And one night I was reading the books, and they were kind of ringing true with me, but I wasn't ready to say this is my thing. And then I got invited to a program in my friend's apartment, and it was just a few kids. We were all teenagers, and or I was 20 years old, and we were just sitting on the floor of his apartment, and this sadhu came, and he sat down and he spoke with us for about an hour and a half, and every word that he said was going into my ears and straight to my heart. And when I walked out of that and stepped up onto the sidewalk, I said, I need to dedicate my life to this. And within the next few weeks, I began to chant regularly. I began to give up a lot of my bad habits. It happened very quick. And I would feel like, sometimes I was almost feeling like I didn't know what was going on. I felt like almost my body was shaking with like excitement. And I just felt like I can go tell everybody about this now, and everybody's going to understand it. I thought, because I had other friends that weren't into it. I'm like, I'm going to go tell them about it, and then they're going to know about this, and then we're all in this together. But it wasn't like that. It wasn't, they not only did they not understand it, but they even maybe sometimes resent it a little bit because they think it's going to take you away from them. And particularly with a wife, there's such a important and serious commitment that if the wife sees I married one person, he's changing into another person. It's natural that could cause a lot of fear, and that fear might be at the basis of whatever other tensions that you're having. So the way that you want to be real careful about this, you really don't want to take a position like where you're judging them, but or even preaching to them. If they don't want to hear your message and you're trying to force it on them, their resistance may just go up stronger and stronger. So sometimes it's really a question of showing them that naturally this is making you happier, but not happier away from them, but happier with them. It's making you happier, it's making you kinder, it's making you more sensitive, it's making you more understanding. You listen to them better, you understand them better. after some time of that, they're going to start to say, oh, maybe this isn't so bad. And it may take time. It may take patience, as you were saying. It may take patience. But there's a sensitivity involved in that. Usually we don't have that maturity when it's happening to us.
It's happening too fast. It happens too fast.
Yeah.
I think I feel the same what you said. Like, even I used to be a person who used to drink frequently, used to smoke every day, and suddenly I just gave it up. So, and she just connected. How could it be, so sudden?
Yeah.
So, though she should be happy with the idea that I'm not drinking and not smoking,
Yeah.
but she has that fear.
Yeah.
That it might. She even asked me like, Ankit, will you become a sannyasi or what?
Yes.
Are you gonna leave me and
So
become
this
a
is the fear. Yeah. This is exactly the fear. And you need to really find a way to reassure her with your words, with your actions, with your mood. She should feel a mood from you, that you're not becoming distant. Sometimes maybe you need a little space for your spiritual practice, but you're coming right back, Let her see that, let her feel that, again, through your words, through your actions. Keep reassuring her that she's got that fear. And so you have to, it's like that fear, it's not just a question of saying, but I told her it's not a problem. Because just your saying that will not be enough to counteract the fear. It's going to take a steady, steady message coming across through your words and your actions. And it may take time before she actually says, okay, our marriage is secure. Our marriage is not going anywhere. It may take some time. And you can tell her, say, I know, I understand if you have that fear, and I don't blame you at all for it. I can totally understand why you might have that fear. But I want to keep showing you that I'm not going anywhere. And I want to be a better husband for you. And so, but she won't need to hear it just once. She needs to hear it again and again and again. You know how, like in a hospital, when they clean, where they do the surgeries, when they clean that room, it's not like when we clean our house. Like they clean that room, like they sanitize everything. I was hearing, was it you that telling me that there's some places where even like the equipment, like the scissors and stuff, they just throw them out after they use them because they're so concerned that one tiny germ can turn into an infection that can actually kill someone. And so they have to be so thorough in how they deal with things. It can be like that in relationships too. Just one little thought, one little word, one little phrase that we say that's misunderstood, it can really take someone's mind and really leave them confused, fearful, doubtful, and it could grow and grow and grow inside. And that's why you have to keep being on top of it, keep being on top of it, keep being on top of it. Keep reinforcing that message through your words, again and again, through your actions. And hopefully it's something that you'll grow to appreciate. Thank you, Ankit. That's a good question. I wish you the best with that. Where are you from?
I'm from Meghalaya, Northeast India.
Northeast India, okay. Thank you. Any other questions? We have a large group here of intelligent-looking people. Are they inquisitive, though? That's the question. That's the only question here right now. Yes, Morton.
So I have a question about, so Krishna had a wife before Radha, right? Her name began with R, I think.
Not before, but we can discuss it.
Okay, yeah, I was a little bit confused, because here we worship Radha, and they're loved together, but there was also another love in Krishna's life.
Many.
Right. Maybe you can talk about their relationship and why we worship that relationship so much.
Yes. So you've taken the questioning into the very esoteric realm, but we'll discuss. This is a very beautiful and exciting part of bhakti, particularly Krishna bhakti. You see, when we go to the most important text and the conclusive text, which is really what we'll be discussing, I believe, tomorrow morning, the Srimad Bhagavatam, how that one text is meant to answer all the questions and put all the other texts in context, Vedas, Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, Mahabharata, and Bhagavad Gita, all the Puranas, how do we understand what's being said in them? We can understand it through the lens of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the most important text that's clarifying everything, and that from the beginning establishes that the absolute truth, the personal feature of the absolute truth, all stems from the one person, Krishna. And he expands in many different ways. He has multifarious energies. Prasya Shaktir Vivadaya Vashruyate. It's one divine being with many different varieties of energy. One of those energies is called the pleasure potency, and that's Radha. And she expands. The pleasure potency means she's personified love, because love is the highest pleasure. And so he expands himself and enjoys love in relation to Radha. And the mood that she has is the pure love for God. And she expands into further gopis, further girlfriends of Krishna, into other devis, into other goddesses, as well as to the wives of Krishna. It's all her energy manifesting in these ways. And he expands not only into this Shakti, the different goddesses, but he also expands as the avatars, Lord Ram, Lord Vishnu, Nrsimhadev, half man, half lion, right? All these different animal incarnations, tortoise, fish, boar, like this. So many incarnations. There's long lists. And the Srimad Bhagavatam gives a whole list of all the different avatars. And then says, Ete Changsap Kala Pungsa, Krishnas tu Bhagavan Svayam. All the avatars mentioned previously, they all stem from this one boy Krishna. But the form of Krishna, the original form, is so special. And the reasons why it's special are esoteric reasons. And especially they have to do with divine love. That form can reciprocate with all varieties of love. We can approach him with whatever type of love we have in our heart, and it's not like he's going to say, sorry, I can't reciprocate with that. Lord Ram, he has one wife, right? Sita. When they were passing through the forest of Danya Karanya, many sages saw, and these sages, they had bhakti in their hearts. They always wanted to serve Lord Vishnu. When they saw Lord Ram, they understood Ram is Vishnu. This is the same person, just in a different form and mood. When they saw the seva, the service, the loving service, the loving connection, the pleasure that Sita could provide to Ram, within them all, they saw she has a position, a very unique and special position, to please Lord Ram in the highest way. With the love that she has, the feminine love that she has, in her body, with her love, no one can please Ram more. What a special position. But Ram has only one wife, so that there's no opportunity. But they went into their deep meditations with this desire in their heart to please Lord Ram in this way. And they took birth in their next lives in Krishna's Leela as the gopis of Vrindavan. You know who the gopis are? Okay, so the girls in Krishna's village, now they all had the opportunity to serve him and love him with romantic love, which is so incredibly pleasing to him, and is such an elevated, incredibly elevated state of yogic meditation. They were able to go there and do that. But Krishna can reciprocate with you as a lover. He can reciprocate with you as a child, right? And accept your parental love. He can reciprocate with you as a friend, and you will feel like you're on an equal level with him, and have the deepest loving friendship possible. And the form of Krishna is called Akila Ras Amrita Murti. The Murti, the form that can reciprocate with all rasas, with all different varieties of love. So within the category of romantic love, even within that category, there's many varieties of romantic love, right? There's the love that a husband and wife share, is one variety, and the love that two lovers that aren't married feel is of another variety, subtly different tastes, right, and flavors. The love of a secret lover is another flavor, right? And then even amongst like the wives, there'll be certain wives that have different moods and different individual characteristics. And so Krishna's reciprocating with them all. It says just in one city of Dwarka, Krishna has 16,108 wives. But really, he has unlimited wives. Anybody that has love for him in that mood can love him in that way. And there's unlimited living beings. So it's just like there's no end. He can, his form can accommodate unlimited love. Right? But Radha is particularly special. You know, the name Radha, the word for loving worship is aradhanam. Right? So this Radha, she's called Radha because she gives the most perfect love, the most perfect worship. And her character is endlessly fascinating and beautiful and sweet. So you read about her in certain esoteric literature. Even in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's only a hint of her name, although we know who it's speaking about. So that love of Radha we consider, because she is the origin of love, the origin of bhakti, the origin of divine love, we worship her next to Krishna. And in one sense, we even worship her higher than Krishna, because the blessing that we're trying to receive in life is the blessing that she gives, right? To love Krishna with a pure heart, with nothing else. Now, not tomorrow, but the next day is a very important holiday. And that's the appearance day of Sri Chaitanya, right? And in our lineage, we worship Sri Chaitanya as an avatar. You could say an avatar of Krishna, but we say it is Krishna. But it's Krishna with a very special internal mission, you could say, purpose. You see, because Krishna is so fascinated with Radha. It says that he's even controlled by Radha. This is a very important, when it gets into the esoteric side of bhakti, when we really want to understand who God is and to love God. There's a lot of religious traditions that talk about loving God. But here we're going to go into great detail about who God is, so that we might really fall in love. Normally when we think of God, we think of a very powerful being, a being that's way beyond us, a being that's going to judge us, a being that has unlimited power. But when you get to Krishna, that's not his mood. His only interest is love. And he sees and feels Radha's love for him. And there's no greater mystery or fascinating thing in existence than the love that Radha has for Krishna. He sees that the experience that she has loving me is a deeper experience than what it is to feel her love for me. In other words, the love that she has is a more profound experience than being loved by her. Or you could flip it the other way. To love God is a more powerful experience than being God, feeling love from another. So he's saying, the one thing that I can't understand in existence is what it's like to feel the love that she feels in her heart for me. And in order to feel that, he has to change his position. He can't be God, he has to be the devotee of God. And so he comes as Sri Chaitanya, and it's Krishna in the mood of Radha, with the complexion of Radha, golden complexion. And he coming to experience what it's like to love Krishna. So that's, in a very small way, why we worship Radha, and she's so important to us. If we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, we see that Krishna is born in Vrindavan, and he grows up with these girls, and he has loving relationships with all these girls, and then he apparently leaves Vrindavan, and they're left feeling the deepest love in a mood of separation. And then he goes on and he goes to Dwarka, where he lives more like a king. In Vrindavan, he's like an intimate village boy. And in Dwarka, he's more like a king, and there he's married. He marries all these wives. And that's another type of love. But all of those wives, they love Krishna, and he loves them. But they also see that he can never forget the love of the gopis of Vrindavan. They're not even jealous of it. They're just thinking, what is their love like? That even though he's living in a palace with 16,000 wives, he could never forget her love. So the love of Radha is really considered the most precious thing in existence. It's the ultimate blessing to be blessed by her, and therefore we worship Radha. And when we chant Hare Krishna, all of this kirtan, Hare means Radha. It's calling out to Radha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Rama. Rama here also means Krishna. So it's when we chant this mantra, we're chanting to not just Krishna, to Radha and Krishna, male and female, feminine and masculine divinity. It's the essence of our path. Okay? Sure. Thank you, Morty. Other questions? Yes, sir, in the back.
Yes. Hello, everybody. You're anyone? Okay. Yeah, I would like to come back to like a more practical question as our friend, like I don't know.
Ankit.
Auntie?
Ankit.
Ankit? Okay. It's like you know, like I've been on, let's say, meditation or spiritual path since few years already. I also, like, I'm born in a very conventional world, you know, like in the West, like complete conventional society, conventional parents, and the expectation for me were very, you know, like having a good job, doing university, working on the computer, and you know, earning a good salary, this kind of stuff. And somehow it doesn't make any sense anymore to me, and it feels a little bit like two different worlds where I'm going like, you know, I'm spending few months in the very conventional world with my friends from high school and everything, and we discuss about, let's say, conventional stuff again. And sometimes I come back in some more spiritual area, like for example Rishikesh these days, and I meet very interesting people, spiritual people, and I practice a lot yoga and meditation. So my question would be like how to manage these two worlds, because I feel it's kind of uncomfortable to go like this kind of, you know, going back every time. It takes time to adapt again. So yeah, if you have some advice or personal advice again, or I don't know, like some stories to share about that, it will be great help for me at least. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's a really important question. I think it's probably an important question for a lot of people. Your name was? Guillaume. Guillaume. I'm really bad with French. Okay. Different people can deal with this in different ways. So there's a variety of ways to approach it. There's not one way, and you can decide. You know, some people, they just cut everything off and they move on. Right? I kind of did that. Because I was invited by one sadhu to travel with him. So I just kind of disappeared from my world, you know, and I didn't come back to it. I didn't really come back to it until like 13, 14 years later. So that's one way. But that's not the way for everyone. If our spiritual practice was Ashtanga yoga, then it's going to require, at least at some point, that you kind of walk away from the world. If our path was Jnana Yoga, same thing. But with Bhakti Yoga, it doesn't necessarily require you walking away from the world. It says, what is it, Grihe Tako, Vane Tako, whether you're living at home or you live in the forest. These practices are so powerful that they can entirely transform you. This hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing the sacred text, particularly Srimad Bhagavatam. Are you familiar with Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Purana? Really very powerful. Bhagavad Gita as well. The kirtan, you know, particularly if there's a community of people doing kirtan, you can join together. Very powerful. Chanting Maha Mantra on beads, like this, a regular amount every day. Offering your food to God, anything that you eat, it's been made an offering. These kind of practices, they can be done anywhere, and then you kind of become a living example of it. And your friends from your conventional life, they either appreciate it or it seems a little weird, and they just kind of, you gently kind of like begin to separate. Not necessarily separate that when you see each other you don't have some kind words for them, but because your interests have changed, there's been a natural separation. Maybe a few of them will resent it or something like that. And in the conversation that we were having before, I think addresses that a bit. That you can say, I'll always see you as my friends. When you come to bhakti, you learn to express yourself in ways that a lot of people in the world just won't go there. To look at especially men have trouble doing this kind of thing. Hey, you're my friend. You'll always, in my heart, you'll always be my friend. And I get it that we have different interests, and I know that what I'm into seems a little weird to you. I get that, but it's really my calling, and I have to follow it. But I want you to know, I'll always see you as my friend. Is that okay? Sometimes you break the ice like that with someone, and you never know where it goes in the future. You never know. I was saying there's one girl, Jiva, here that you may have seen her around. She heads up the Bhakti Recovery Group. Sign's not here anymore. Yeah, she was here earlier. But we were friends when I was 15 years old and she was 13 years old, way, way back, By the time I was 20 years old, I got into Bhakti, and then I disappeared. And I didn't see her again for 30 years. And I went one path, and she went another path, that involved heroin addiction and a lot of rough recovery from that. Became a parent, and, marriage, divorce, so many things. But then 30 years later, we met again. And we were now we're friends on a whole different level. She reached out to me and said, I want to learn more about what you're into. And for about a year, or a year and a half, or something like that, once a week I would speak with her for about an hour and a half. And I would just teach her what bhakti is. And then it just became her life. So that even that may happen with some old friends, or it may not. I have other old friends. I'm from New York City, and New York City is the kind of place you're always bumping into people. You're always bumping into old friends and things like that, just on the street. So I have also old friends that I would imagine when I first got into it, they just thought I was really weird. But now that we're so much older, like I'm 59 years old now. So it's like we're old now. And hopefully a lot of the childish stuff that we're caught up in is just kind of let go. And I think a lot of my friends that kind of appreciate what I'm into now, even if they never got into it themselves. They say, okay, he's doing something, interesting with his life, something positive, So your friends may become like that. But, so there's room for different approaches. But maybe there's some overriding principles that are important. You can't let your friends drag you down. You can't let them bring you into conversation or bring you into situations that are just going to drain the spiritual progress that you're making. The spiritual aspirant doesn't want to just talk about mundane things, and most people, their conversations are always on that level. Politics and entertainment and trivial things. And we don't have time for that. And we lose an interest for that. We actually lose the taste for it. Right? And when they feel that, they may feel like you're judging them. And hopefully we can help them understand that we're not judging them. But we can't let ourselves be held back. So that's the fine line that you have to walk if you're not going to walk away from the world. Then you have to walk that fine line of, I'm not going to let myself be dragged down. Sometimes I share the example of my wife, who's also a Krishna devotee. But when you see her at work, nobody would really be able to tell. The only thing that may be given away, she's got these beads, but nobody really knows what that means either. But within her workplace, which was a school, there's a lot of tension in the school, right? Because you have parents paying a lot of money to put the kids in the school, so they're very demanding. And these are like aggressive New York people, you know? And then you have the administration of the school, and they're kind of like hardened from all of the pressure, you know? They're kind of like tough. And then you have the teachers, you know, and they got to deal not with only with the parents and the administration, but with the kids all day as well. And so those three groups, the parents, the teachers, and the administration, they're all at odds with one another. And they're always talking about one another. And the talk isn't good. They're all resentful of each other. Oh, they don't understand. What do they know? You know, and it can get like low-level conversation. The kind of conversation that spiritual people is the kind of pettiness that they're trying to leave behind. Because when you're maintaining all that pettiness in your mind, there's no room left for deep contemplation, for deep meditation. So the spiritual person has to let that kind of conversation go. They have to rise above it. And my wife just didn't participate. You know, like, even amongst the teachers, they're all just gossiping about each other. And she wasn't judgmental or didn't put on a big show, but people kind of got the message that she doesn't participate. And you get that vibe once, you get it twice, 3, 4, 5 times. You begin to say, "Oh, she doesn't vibrate on that platform," and people just stop approaching her that way. But it sends a powerful message. It sends a powerful message that this person is trustworthy. This person is different. This person is into something special. They're on a higher level. They can even understand. People can understand that there's something like saintly about that, you know? And what we found was like, when those people, when they hit a crisis in their life, they would turn to her. And they just start to spill out their whole life, you know, like they just discuss everything with her, you know, even though they had never really talked much before, but it just means in the back of their heads, they were saying, she's special. And when the pressure was on, they went to her. But when life became a heavy pressure, they would go to her. So that's one way to operate in the world. We're not going to get involved in any of this lower class conversation. No room for that. We can't allow ourselves to get caught up in that. There's a lot of mundane stuff that people are all wrapped up in, the Oscars and the World Cup cricket thing and the this and that. There's so many things. Spiritual people, they kind of have to let that stuff go. But if you're in the world with other people, you got to do it in such a way where you don't come off as like some really arrogant person. It's got to be with humility. It's got to be with humility, with a soft heart. See if people can feel that, you know. See. If we behave like that, some of them may not understand. They might walk away. They may even resent us. And you know what we do when they resent us? We don't resent them. Right? They just can't understand right now. I hope someday they can understand. If they're coming at us with aggressive, you're into this stupid stuff, it's absurd. You know, that person we don't even need to argue with. You know? Okay, maybe I'm absurd. Anyway, I still wish you the best. I hope we can be friends. So leave it like that. You know? This is how the transcendentalist is moving through the world. You know, moving through the world. Someone comes at me with aggressive energy, I'm just sending back peaceful energy, loving energy, you know, like that. It's coming at me, maybe it's unfair. Ultimately, it's fair. Ultimately, I've done something in the past to bring this in my way. So I'm not going to blame this person, you know. Are they a bad person because of it? No, they're not a bad person. You know, underneath, we're all good people. Underneath, we're all sparks of pure spiritual energy. Sometimes it's coming through a warped mind. It's coming through a filter of mental anger, a feeling of mental resentment, a filter of something that's warping that purity within them. It's coming out in some kind of aggressive way. Sometimes it's directed at me. That's okay too. It's not even me that it's directed at. It's just my body and my mind that it's being directed at. I'm always safe. I'm always secure because I'm made of spirit. You know? If you're contemplating like this daily, if you're reading the text like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam every day, as a sadhana, as a spiritual practice, and then you're practicing thinking like this as you go through the day, your day becomes a powerful spiritual practice. Maybe much more powerful than walking off into the woods and trying to remain, secluded. It can really become a very, very dynamic spiritual practice. If you have someone that you can kind of do it with, that you can come back and share notes with at the end of the day, what you're going through, they can help you. You just got to let that go. You're right. We help each other. In this day and age, we're weak. We're really weak. It's like we've got these minds that are always disturbed. We've got minds that are full of just ridiculous, trivial, absurd stuff. It's hard to be a yogi. And the pressures of life can just snap us, and we can let go of the standard of spiritual behavior that we want to live on. But so we're kind of like little twigs that can snap. But if you take a bunch of twigs and tie them together, it becomes strong. And so that's why Sangha is important. And when I say Sangha, I don't just mean we get together every now and then. But Sangha means you really open up to one another. You really share with your other. There have to be some people, at least one person, ideally a few people that you really trust and that you admire. Some people, spiritual people that we really admire. That person is on a whole other level than I'm on. I respect them. When I go and see them, I bow down to them. And I offer service to them. And I with humility, I ask questions to them. That can be a very powerful relationship. And then for people that are more like my peers, for them we want friendship, deep friendship. We're going through this together. We're walking this path together. Let's hold on to each other, support one another. We'll all go through our struggles. We'll help each other get over them together. We'll read together. We'll discuss together. We'll share together. I'll cook for you, feed you. You'll accept it. You'll cook for me, feed me. I'll accept it. Right? I'll give you some gifts. You'll give me some gifts. We'll express our love openly. And most important, I'll open up my mind and my heart to you. You'll open up your mind and your heart to me. Now we're building some strengths. Now we're building some strength. If there's other people that are maybe more new to this than yourself, then we're offering whatever help we can offer, with compassion, with the kindness. These are spiritual relationships. There's an etiquette to spiritual relationships. It's not just like a free-for-all. Spiritual doesn't mean just anything goes, like free, like that. The spiritual means refined. Refined. I know a deeply spiritual person knows how to respect elders and relate to them in a way where their hearts are touched. They can speak the right words. Have you ever read Ramayana at all? Story of Lord Ram? And there you hear about Hanuman. Hanuman is loved all over India. But Hanuman is not just that he was powerful, like a powerful monkey warrior. He was all of that. But Hanuman is like a refined person. When Ram first meets Hanuman, it's like Ram and his brother Lakshman see this. Hanuman actually comes to them in disguise. And he needs to find out who they are. And are they friends or enemies? But as soon as Hanuman sees Ram, he knows this is a very special person. And Hanuman he's representing another ruler. And he comes and he speaks to Ram and Lakshman with such sweet words, such intelligent words, with such a refined nature, that he wins the heart of Ram and Lakshman, who are suspicious of who he might be. Right? People that are deeply spiritual or refined like this, they can say sweet words and mean them. They can say sweet words and mean them. And it touches people's hearts. So if we learn to relate to one another like that, I'll tell you something. This whole community that's putting on this whole festival, right? I think it's about 70 people, and they're all just staying right here in this ashram. They're all from other parts of the world, most of them, almost all of them. And it's not easy, it's not the 5-star accommodations here, for sure. They're crammed together in little rooms. They're struggling to stay healthy. They're putting on a festival every night for 5 weeks. I mean, it's hard enough to put on a festival for one night. They're doing it all day, every day, for 5 weeks, and they're doing it first class. Look, everybody's getting a free meal, and it's like a delicious meal. It's like a 9-course meal or something every night. You know, you got kirtan going on here with a great sound system. You know, they got more people that want to come in than they can fit. They're finding a way to try to accommodate everyone. You know, they're doing henna for people here. They're doing gopi dots for people. They have this kind of, come here and have a sari. We'll give it to you for free. It's not a gimmick. It's the mood of a deeply spiritual person. I want to offer you something. This is how people become close to one another and open up their hearts. Let me give you a gift. You know, when there's no ulterior motive. It's just the only motive is let's come closer to each other. You know, let's get to know each other. Let's vibrate on a higher level of energy together. And they're doing. It's not. You know, you would think that they would all be fighting with one another, right? Because you bring 70 people together. They got 70 different desires, and they've learned to all move together with one, in harmony, with the motive. Just let's all come together and do something wonderful together, and we'll all play our part, right? And when there's a little tension, we'll let it go because it's so much less important than what we're trying to do. That's spiritual. You know, that's spiritual. Material means we're caught up in our own little individual selfish little worlds, and we're bumping into each other all the time. Spiritual means we're refined. We've learned to open up with one another. We've learned to connect with one another. We've learned to appreciate with one another. The kind of fears that we're talking about, we let the fears go. We've learned to trust. Love and trust. That's like the basis of spiritual relationships. So all these things are ideas you can take into your life, into the world that you have to go and operate in, you know. Make sure you have the lifelines. Make sure you have spiritual people that you can open up to, not just once a year or something like that, but regularly, you know. There may be some people that you can only open up to once a year, like sometimes these really exalted, very high-level spiritual people, they have thousands of people trying to get their attention and guidance. And you can only get a little bit, but it becomes very treasured. But there also have to be other people that you can speak to all the time, that you can open up with whenever you need to. All those things will be important. Is that okay? Thank you. Thank you. It's a good question. Important question. All right. More questions? Yes. Your name?
Thank you for the question.
Hi. Your name is?
My name is Eric.
Eric.
I recently started cycling, basically around the world without a goal, more or less.
Okay.
And what came to me, the last 2 months, I actually feel a little bit nervous because it's very close to my heart.
Okay.
I just feel the tension in my heart. Is loneliness. And I feel that this journey that I'm on is very special, and I feel like I want to continue this journey, but I want to tap into your beautiful wisdom. How would you handle loneliness on the bike, sleeping in a tent, being surrounded by beautiful nature, but still feeling lonely?
Oh. That's a deep question. You know, I've been married to my wife for almost 24 years. And so I've always had a very dear friend right with me almost all the time. But there was something inside me that told me that at some point in life I have to be alone. A little bit of loneliness. And the way the world worked is that her mother really needs her care. And so she's been with her mother now for about a year and a half or so, 2 years or so. And so we've seen each other a little bit, but mostly we've been separate. We talk on the phone regularly and so, but it's given me a lot of time alone, right, in my apartment, Nobody else there. And there's something about being alone that can be a very powerful impetus in spiritual life. And what I found about it is because what you're meant to discover when you're alone is that you're never alone. That God is in the heart of every living being. But usually we're walking around completely out of touch with it. Our awareness is brought outside, and it's contending with all the different people that we're meeting outside. And meanwhile, there's a voice inside of God that we're turned away from all the time. When we're alone, it gives us the opportunity to turn within and actually open up that conversation with God within our own heart that we might ignore forever if we weren't alone sometimes. And that can become really very special. You know, a really very, very special experience. Opening up a conversation with God in your own heart. How many times do we do that? Like, we should really be asking ourselves, how many times do we do that in a day? How many times do I turn inside my own self and begin to speak with God? Do I do it when I wake up in the morning? Do I do it when I go to sleep at night? Even if we just did that, right? Like, what if we all just took a little vow for the next week? The moment that I'm waking up, I'm going to spend 5 minutes just talking to God in my own heart. And when I lie down to go to sleep, I'm going to spend 5 minutes just talking to God in my own heart. And what am I going to say? Maybe I don't have anything to say. No. You just say what you're going through in life. Dear God, this is where I'm at. I'm a little afraid of this. And I'm worried about that. You know, maybe I shouldn't be because I know you're here with me all along. I know that I'm beyond all these temporary transformations of the material energy. But still, this is where I'm at. You know, could you speak to me more? Could you speak to me a little louder so I'll hear you? You know, you can pray like that. And if we're never alone, it's hard for us to turn inside like that. So sometimes we're blessed with aloneness. We're blessed with that. It's said that the sannyasi, the renunciate, they would go off into the jungle all alone, you know. And the jungle is not just alone, but it's dangerous out there. There's all kind of animals, tigers, you know, and wild boars that go running at you and then they knock you over, and I don't know if they bite you or they do something, but I think even those boars can kill you. There's owls. You know what the owls can do to you? They fly down on your head and they grab your head with their claws and they can just crush your skull. I mean, there's all kind of dangers out there. But the idea was, I'm going there, but I'm going with a companion. I have God within my heart, right? All the time. And by being alone, it would be a way where they would connect to God in the heart some more. So as soon as you started saying that I've been on this bicycle trip, I was thinking the first thing I thought was that's time alone. And that's the most special thing about it. Whether you're riding the bicycle or walking or whatever it is where you're spending time alone, you can make that a very valuable time to develop your internal life. And honestly, if we never have that time alone, it's very possible, even we're trying to live a God-centered life, and we never talk to God. Right? It's meant to be this personal connection, but we never talk. How can you have a personal relationship with someone that you never talk to? So this inner life of prayer, it's really where the connection between you and God can really grow. You know, if it's informed by reading texts like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, if it's informed by occasionally, you know, connecting with deeply spiritual people, then you'll have something to say. The Srimad Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses. And it's many, many stories. And when I first used to read that book, I was a young man. I was like 20. And I would read those stories, and it was really the plot line of the stories that interest me. But at a certain point, the plot line reaches a point where a devotee of Vishnu or a devotee of Krishna begins to pray. It happens again and again and again. And whenever I get to the prayers, I was kind of like, okay, let's move this along a little bit, and let's get more to the action. But as I've grown older and hopefully grown a bit more wise, I've begun to understand that all of the plot is really just to frame the prayers. And so much is revealed in these prayers about what spiritual life is, what yoga is, what humility is, what is tolerance, what is kindness, and ultimately what is love. What is divine love, what is bhakti. It's all through those prayers, and if you read those prayers regularly, daily, what it does is it gives us the opportunity to learn how to speak to God in our own hearts. It gives us the language to speak. When we talk to God in the heart, first thing we can do is say something to glorify God. Dear God in my heart, you are the Paramatma. Even though I turned my back from you, you stayed with me. And you stay with every living being as they move through this world. It could be some glorification. Say something that's great about God. Show some appreciation. Then you can begin to speak about your own life. I'm out here on the road in this bicycle all alone. I don't even know why I came here. But I'm beginning to understand that maybe I've come here to meet you. For real. Maybe talk to you for the first time in my life. And then you can express what your desire is. Here's my desire, and ideally that desire is a purely spiritual desire. Dear God, because this is what you read in Bhagavatam again and again and again. Dear God, I don't want anything of this world from you. I don't want to come to you asking for things. I don't even want to come to you asking for liberation from the sufferings of this world. I want to get to know you. I want to learn to love you. I'm waiting for the day, I'm eagerly waiting for the day where I'm blessed with a love for you that's deep inside me arises, and that's what I'm praying for. So like this, you can learn to talk to God if you read these things, and being alone can be a strong, powerful impetus to do. So I wish you the best on your journey on the bicycle. Are you riding through India on the bicycle? Wow, that must be quite an adventure. Have you covered a lot of territory here?
No, sorry.
No, I'm not cycling through India. I actually left my bike in Turkey, but I came to be in India for a couple of weeks to connect with people again.
Okay, good.
Which was very needed. But my destination will be India as well.
Okay.
At one point. Yeah. Maybe if I can ask a follow-up question, because I do. I feel a very strong connection with God. And I am in conversation with God, and somehow this loneliness, it's so deep and it's so painful that it's new.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not new, but it's very.
It's out now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit afraid. Like, where is this going? Yeah, and it's not really a question, it's more like a statement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think your bicycle ride is a temporary thing where you're isolated from people for long periods of time. But the fact is that even people that are living in crowded cities are feeling lonely. In one sense, it's not so much about where we're at, but it's like physically. Because even if we're surrounded by people, I live in New York City, and so many people suffer from loneliness. Whatever pain we feel in the world, you mentioned pain, whatever pain we feel in the world, it's just like any other, like physical pain. What is physical pain? But it's like an indication that something's not quite right. Right? Something in the body is not quite right, and it needs to be addressed. Through some kind of medicine or some kind of treatment, in some way it needs to be addressed. So similarly, the emotional pain we feel, we can see in that way too. That there's something in my life that's not quite aligned right. And from the perspective of Bhakti Yoga, we could say it's like we have an eternal connection to the very source of love. And somehow we've turned away from it. So that pain, it's just there to get us to turn back. If we can learn to interpret it that way, then that pain becomes very helpful, right? I'm feeling this again. I need to turn back. I've been turning away, and we can be at a certain point. We may feel like that pain was the greatest blessing in our life, Right? If I would have never felt that pain, I would have never turned back and reconnected. And that reconnection to God, in one sense, it's a one-on-one relationship. But in another sense, it's the relationship that connects you in every other relationship in your life. Because if God is the root of all existence, the root that's sustaining and supporting every other living being, then it's like every other living being is a leaf on the tree. And so when you water the root, you water all the leaves. And when you connect with God, you connect with every living being. When you make that connection to God, there's no loneliness. Sometimes we think that there's an aspect of spirituality that's more attuned to being alone than to being connected. Because also when we're alone, we're removed from a lot of the distractions that stop us from going within. But not everybody goes within to find God. A lot of people go in just to find themselves. And that in itself can be a powerful experience. Because we are spirits. And when we feel that spiritual nature, our own spiritual nature, it's a powerful experience. But if you can go in and discover God, that loneliness will go. I guarantee you that it will go. You'll begin to understand yourself, you'll begin to understand God, and through that you'll begin to understand your relationship with every other living being. And God will give you everything that you need. You know, most of us aren't meant to be living as hermits. You know, God will give everything that you need. And hopefully you can find a community of spiritual people that understand you and understand that your spiritual aspirations are in harmony with. You know, where are you from?
From the Netherlands.
Oh, I'm meeting so many nice people from the Netherlands here. Yeah, so many, actually. So many. So it seems like there should be a nice community of people there. Yeah. They're all just here right now. Well, they came here too. So your name was
Eric.
Eric. It's a pleasure to meet you, Eric. And I wish you really the best on your travels and in your spiritual life. Read Srimad Bhagavatam, meet God within your own heart, and see where it takes you. That would be my humble advice. How are we doing? One more question. Yes.
I have a list of 5 questions.
Okay.
I'll restrict myself to just one.
Okay.
Lord Krishna says that you should be detached from the fruits of your labor, the fruits of your action, and I can understand that the mental aspect of that is to be detached mentally and so that you don't suffer if things go wrong, or if there's things don't work out your way, then you don't feel aggrieved by that. But I guess are we entitled to the fruits if we do happen to get fruits of our labor? Can we enjoy those, or are we supposed to renounce the fruits of our labor as well? Is that what he means when he says be detached? Yeah.
Your name again is Akshay, yeah. Thank you for coming back, Akshay. Krishna is going to say that we should be detached from the fruits of our work. For most people, the fruits of the work is money. Right? He also tells us we should be detached from our home. We should be detached from our family. We should be detached from everything. But what does that mean? It doesn't mean that we're meant to ignore our family. It doesn't mean that we're meant to not sleep in our home. But it means that we know all along, deep down within, that ultimately none of this is mine. My money is not mine. My home is not mine. Even my children are not mine. Right? Everything is the energy of God. I'm the energy of God. My home is the energy of God. My wealth is the energy of God. My family is the energy of God. The Bhakti Yogi sees everything as ultimately the energy, the property of God. I need to operate in that consciousness. And if I'm operating in that consciousness, I'm operating with detachment. It doesn't mean that I'm not attentive. It doesn't mean that I'm not engaged with enthusiasm, with great care. Arjuna was being asked, what's the verse? 247, I think. Even I may be wrong about that. It's not 240. Yeah, it is 247. Karmanya Vedakaraste, Mapaleshu Kadachana, Makarma Pala Heturbor, the taste of roast Karmani. Right? You have it? It's the way it's you have a right to perform and prescribed duties. Really, the word used is adhikara. Your qualification. He's saying to Arjuna, really what he's saying, he's kind of saying it in a positive way, but the negative way we say, you are not qualified to not work in this world. You are not qualified, Arjuna, to wander off into the mountains and give up your work. Right? So he's saying it the other way, you are qualified to work. Right? But you have no rights to the fruits of your work. Right? Never consider yourself to be the cause of the fruits of your activities. And never be attached to not doing your duty. So he's giving this formula. You know, if you go back to the Upanishad, or if you go back to the four Vedas, this is a lot of what we've been talking about in the mornings here. The four Vedas are saying, do your duty, enjoy the fruits. Right? And the Upanishads are saying, walk away from the duties, you don't need the fruits. And Bhagavad Gita is saying, do the duties and be detached from the fruits. So it's saying, have the same renunciation as the Upanishadic renunciants, but be just as dutiful as the Vedic karmi. Okay, so now you're looking at everything. What are the fruits of the work? I get this money. The money's not mine. When I go to work, I'm not thinking, the money that I make will be the way that I buy my happiness. I'm going to purchase this, and I'm going to purchase that, and purchase that, and then I'm going to find happiness. Right? The yogi doesn't think that way. The karma yogi, the bhakti yogi doesn't think that way. They think, I'm going to go to work today in the mood of service. I may do a lot of good business today. I may do hardly any business today. I'm going to engage with full enthusiasm either way, because it's my service in the world to God. Right? Then the fruits of the work will come. They'll come in the form of money. I'm not under the illusion that when I have this car and these clothes and that apartment, that suddenly I will be happy. Because happiness is something within me. Happiness is not something that I purchase from outside. So the fruits of this work, I don't need these to buy external things to make me happy. I need to go within to find my happiness. I need to connect with God to find my happiness. So what do I do with the fruits of this work? I don't see it as mine at all. I see it all as belonging to God. Now, how do I engage it? Well, my first service to God is to my family, because they are all the property of God. So by serving them, I will be taking care of God's property. So let me provide for them their needs. Now say I have fruits left over. I'm detached from them. They're not for me. I'll take care of the basic necessities so that I can continue in my service like this. And if I have something more, well, then I'll use that to serve still some more, right? Serve my broader community. Because they are also all the energy of God. And their needs... When I'm in this role as the money maker in this world, in the Vedic yogic kind of paradigm, there are 4 stages of life, right? Brahmachari life, you're not making any money. You're going to the guru's home and being trained. Then there's married life, you're making money. Then there's retired life, you're not making any money. Your kids are taking care of you now. And then maybe there's the life where you walk off into the forest and you're not making any money. So there's one stage of life out of the 4 where you're making money. And when you're in that stage, it becomes your dharma, your responsibility to take care of society, you know, in whatever way you can. The society, they're orphans, they're elderly, they're, traditionally there are wells that would need to be dug so people will have water. There are trees that need to be planted so people can have shade or fruits or flowers. You give. You begin to identify as the giver. Nothing is mine, right, except my desire to serve. I'm just the custodian of whatever fruits of the work that I get. I'm detached from the fruits of the work, but I'm not detached from doing my duty. I'm just as aggressive, just as expert, just as responsible as any materialist, maybe even more so. But I'm not claiming the fruit of the work for myself. And in this way, I remain free from good or bad karma. I stay entirely disentangled. And my heart and my mind can be entirely given to God. That's it. Does that make sense? All right. What time is it?
8:16.
Oh, there's still more time. We can go till 8:30. You have more questions, Akshay? Okay. Maharaj will be disappointed if we quit too early.
Let's say if our parents or if our bosses or someone who's superior to us asks us to lie or asks us to cheat or asks us to do something unethical, how should we handle that situation? And should we follow what they're saying because they're our parents, or should we follow the wisdom of Lord Krishna and the Gita in that situation?
Very tricky relationships in this world sometimes. It can get complicated. Nothing's so easy. When we read the Mahabharata, you've read Mahabharata? You're familiar. You've watched. Yudhishthira. Maybe my favorite character is next to Krishna, Balaram, but Yudhishthira. Oh, so good, so noble, right? So honest. He just could not lie, right? But what we also see is it also becomes really difficult. There's many times where Yudhishthira himself, they call him Dharmaraj, where he has trouble ascertaining what is the right thing to do. He struggles with it internally. If he's struggling with it, certainly we're going to have times where we struggle with it. What's the right thing to do? Sometimes we become determined, I will do the right thing. But then we kind of take pride in that, and we kind of just when there's a certain wise compromise to make, we're too rigid. We don't know how to bend. I once it's interesting, there's a very important verse that was composed by Sri Chaitanya that is said to be practically the most important verse that we have. It's our path to perfection, this verse. Siddha Pranali, path to perfection. Trinadapi Sunichena. One must be more humble than a blade of grass. Taror Iva Suhishnana. One must be more tolerant than a tree. Amanena Manadena. One should offer all respect to others, and require no respect to be shown to oneself. Kirtaniya Sadahari. In this state of mind, one can remain always absorbed in the holy names of God. Okay? So in the lineage, that's a verse from Sri Chaitanya, who is the head of our lineage, the fountainhead of our lineage. And I've always heard that verse explained, be more humble than a blade. It was about humility, and be more tolerant than a tree. It was about learning to be tolerant. But once I heard someone explain that verse that was outside of our lineage, and he had a slightly different take on it, and I thought, oh, that was an interesting take on it. He said, the part about the grass, being more humble than the grass, the idea is the grass is very flexible. You step on the grass and it bends with it, and then it comes back up. So grass is very flexible, and the tree is very rigid, right? It's very strong, and it doesn't budge. We have to know when to bend and when to be rigid, in life. Sometimes we think spiritual life means being rigid. I'm gonna do my sadhana. I'm gonna wake up at this time. I'm gonna chant this many rounds. I'm gonna do this, do that. If anybody asks me to do that, I'm gonna say no. You're an illusion. I'm not an illusion. It's like I'm gonna be this rigid person. And sometimes people think spiritual just means no, man, you go with the flow. Everything's okay. It's like we have to know when to be rigid and when to be flexible. So they're asking you to lie. You know, they could be asking you to do some really dishonest business dealings where you're cheating lots of people and really harming their lives. Or they could be asking you to say, you know, when this lady comes over to the house, you know, say that she looks nice, you know, or something like that. You know, these are two different levels. The Vaishnava, the devotee of Krishna, is trying to be honest in all their dealings. Honesty, real honesty. But sometimes we may say some sweet words, you know, just so people can not be hurt, not feel pain. We want to move through this world not causing pain to any other living entity, you know. So sometimes we might be a little flexible in that. But if it's something that's really ethically wrong, you know, something that's really, you know, this is how we're going to cheat people, or this is how we're going to mislead someone, we need to do this. That's a world that the Vaishnava is trying to not go down that path. And if someone that's dear to us is asking us to do it, that might require a difficult conversation. You know? I'm not judging you, but in my own life, you know, I'm trying to keep my words and my actions the same. I'm trying to be straightforward. I'm trying to be honest. You know, it may be that you have to have that conversation, uncomfortable conversation. Sometimes we're going to I suppose that's part of being rigid. Okay, I'm not just going to bend over on this one. I need to stand up. But when you brought up the idea of someone that's superior, in other words, they're my elder, maybe my parent, and I need to speak with them, there's a way to do that where you do it so respectfully that you don't put up a wall of that's going to block the communication. If it can be done very respectfully, if the words that you use aren't judgmental, if you express yourself, if you're saying you're asking me to do something that I can't do, I respect you, and that's why I want to have this honest conversation with you. But I feel I can't do that. You know, try to maintain the respect, but say what you have to say. Sometimes you have to say something you have to say to someone you really respect. Because even the people that you really respect sometimes may let you down a little bit. And you get to a point where you have to express what you have to express. Then the key is you have to say what you have to say, but do it with great respect. You know? If we learn to do that, then we're progressing in life, you know. We'll be blessed if we do that. Where I'm from, like in America, New York, it's like as soon as we get a chance to tear someone down and tell them how wrong and how unethical and how bad they are, we just jump all over it, you know, to make ourselves feel better. I'm not saying everyone in America, but like, there's a lot of this going on. There's not a lot of respect for elders and that kind of thing there, you know. There's kind of more like we want to feel like the champion that's tearing someone down all the time. You know, it's very destructive energy. It's a tamasic energy. Very tamasic, destructive energy. This should be coming from a very sattvic place. You know, sattvic is preserves. You know, how can I say what I have to say and preserve the relationship, not destroy the relationship? How can I do it and preserve the relationship? Then you're on the working with the sattvic energy, and that'll bring the best results. Not the destruction will always bring pain. Is that okay? And one more question in the back.
So many spiritual traditions, they speak of the death of the ego. So how does Krishna consciousness, seek to dissolve the ego, or does it seek to, let's say, transform it?
Thank you. That's a very good question. And in one sense, it might be a question of semantics, what it means, its death or its transformation. Our Acharya, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he would usually, when he spoke of the ego, he would usually use the term false ego. False ego. Because his point was, when we really get to the nature of the self has its own personality. It has its own ego. There's a true ego. We have a real identity underneath it all. He was saying that there commonly, especially where there's a whole talk about the death of the ego, a lot of times those people that are speaking about achieving the absolute truth on the Brahman platform, where there's just a oneness of energy. And when one feels that, they feel like they are just part of a big oneness that doesn't exactly have an ego, an identity. It just is light. And that is one level of spiritual realization. But the Bhakti Shastras teach that there's beyond that, that's kind of a neutral stage. And beyond that, there's real ego. So like there's false ego, which is reflection. Then there's no ego, which is kind of like a neutral state. And then there's spiritual ego, which is the spiritual state. In that spiritual ego, you have an identity in relation to God. You love God in this way. You love God in that way. You have your own personality. So the question is, how do we get there? Right? And in bhakti, it's a combination of our own effort and our own diligent practices, as well as receiving the blessings. Receiving the blessings of God. We're receiving the blessings of God through other advanced Vaishnavas, other advanced bhakti yogis. But, for instance, like some practices that would, a lot of it is contemplation, Am I this body? I've been brought up to believe that I am a man. I am American. I am 59 years old now. I am this and I am that. All these different things. We've been trained to think that. But let me examine that. Is this really true? In one sense, I've been through many bodies, even in this one lifetime. I was in a boy's body, and then infant's body, boy's body, teenage body, grown man's body, and now I'm getting a little bit like an older man's body. And those bodies have been made up of different stuff, different cells, different material energy. I'm in a body that's very, very, very different, made of different energy than the one that is, but still it's me. It means I'm not this body. And so this identity that I've been holding on to, there's no truth to it, and it's going to disappear, poof, just like any other mirage or any other dream. So this kind of contemplation is part of how we kill the ego or transform the ego, return to the real ego, right? Reflecting on that, especially when it's challenged in some way. That we're able to let that go, let that go, let that go. So part of it's examining. Now, that it could be approached through ritual, like the ritual of puja. Right? Say you do daily puja. I have Radha and Krishna on my altar. I know that I have a temporary identity as a man that's moving through the world with certain responsibilities. That's my temporary ego, but it's not the real me. But when I sit down to do this puja every day, I want to take a few moments before the puja to reflect that all the responsibilities that I have through my life and in this day are a temporary blip in time. I'm going to set that aside for now. I'm going to step outside of that, and I'm going to do this puja without any of that ego. You understand? Called Bhuta Shuddhi, the purification of the ego. For the next 20 minutes while I do this puja, I'm not a man, I'm not an American, I'm none of these things. I'm a devotee of Krishna. I'm a lover of Krishna. That's all I am. And I'm stepping out of time, and I'm stepping out of my circumstances. And within, I'm letting the ego go for the next 30 minutes entirely. And I'm going to live in that space where I'm detached from this ego. Do you understand that? Does that make sense? I'll try to describe it a little bit more. This practice of Bhuta Shuddhi, you may see priests before they do puja. Maybe they're sitting off to the side, they're doing pranayama. Have you ever seen that? That's this process. I want to settle my mind. I have concerns that I need to deal with today, right? I'm going to have to do this, and later on in the day I have to go and do that, and I got to take care of my kids and my family and my job and all these different things. But for these 20 minutes, I don't need to think about that at all while I'm doing my puja. So I need to settle my mind. I need to go within. I need to take all my worldly concerns and worldly ego and set it aside. And now I'm in Vrindavan with Radha and Krishna in my eternal identity, and I'm serving them. And that's where my mind's going to be for the next 20 or 30 minutes. Nowhere else.
This enlightenment, like getting that 30-minute state to lifelong.
Yes, I'm practicing stepping into that space, and eventually I'm living in that space. Eventually I enter that space eternally, and that's enlightenment. Make sense? I need to accustom myself to living outside of my ego, and I can do that by practicing puja every day. So ritual can do it, contemplation can do it, seva can do it, all these different things that we do, even service to guru, you know? Mostly I'm walking around with the ego that I'm the center of the universe. You're my center of the universe. Now I revolve around you. Like, that's another way of killing the ego, right? I'm not the center, I'm the servant. That's who I truly am. That's an idea that's consistent with who I truly am, eternally. Right? I'm a servant of Krishna eternally. A loving servant of Krishna eternally. That's the real ego. So let me live that in relation to the Guru, who's the representative of God. Right? Let my time and my energy and my mind revolve around Guru Seva, and in this way I'm killing the ego. So in one sense, all the different practices in bhakti are ego killing, or we could call it ego transforming or ego revealing, like revealing the true ego. And eventually, that chanting of that name reveals who we are. Eventually, as we get very advanced in bhakti, there's a sprout in the heart that, and serving Radha and Krishna in a particular way, with a particular flavor, that taste begins to grow in us. And we become attracted to particular parts of Krishna's leelas, reading about them, hearing about them, because our real ego is calling for it now. And then that grows and grows and grows and sprouts, and when it fully flowers and gives fruits, we call that prema. That when the fruit of love of God grows on that plant, we call that prema. And now we're in our real ego, fully. That's how bhakti works. Thank you very much. Thank you all so much. It's been wonderful spending this time with you. We're doing it every night. So we'll be back tomorrow. And of course, again, at 9 a.m., we're getting into some really interesting talks. So if you'd like to come to that, 9 a.m. here in the Kirtan all night till about 10. Thank you all so much. Hari Om. Tat Sat.